Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Richardson. I am the co-founder for Agile In Color. I'm here today for the first of three lightning talks that we will do with the illustrious Korrin Mitchell, who's here hanging out with us today. Korrin, would you just want to take a few seconds to introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Hi, everybody, and thanks, CP, for having me. Um, my name is Korrin Mitchell. I am an Agile coach. I have been working in the Agile space for about 17, 18 years now. My career started off, I've been a business analyst, a product owner, I've been a scrum master. I've never developed anything like actual coding, and I've never done any UX design, but I've worked very closely with UX design teams and research teams. And about 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, I started coaching and working more in the coaching space. So thank you for having me here today.
Cool, sweet, fantastic. Yeah, you seem like you've done quite a bit, right? You've pretty much done the entire gamut of all of the things, right? And it's just really interesting because I think most agile coaches, most scrum masters, people who are coming through this job family have done a plethora of different and unique things. So it's really great to hear that you've had such a unique experiences. Mine is something that's very similar. Going from being a software developer to actually being a scrum master myself. So we've done it pretty much the entire thing. But what I do want to get into, because we do have three talks we want to get into. This talk is really kind of be centered around, creating inclusive cultures. However, though, you and I, we talk about pretty much everything under the sun. So do not feel like you're locked into that topic. But I do at least want to just start with purposely creating inclusive cultures. And it's actually a really interesting topic, especially because I'm actually going through the process of interviewing people at my current job. And it's very interesting as a hiring manager where I have to be very deliberate about looking at the profiles that come across my doorstep, but then also trying to make sure that, hey, does this person not only has the skill sets, has the chops, but also is adding more than just, hey, they look really great on paper, right? And just making sure that are they bringing not only great ideas, but do they have like unique and different experiences? And I would love to get your experiences. I'm sure you probably had, been like a hiring manager yourself. And I would love to get you understand your perspective, and we'll go from there.
Well, let's take it back to the definition. So I love this
Mhm.
topic. It's near and dear to me as well for quite a few reasons. When I think of inclusive culture, I think of a culture that accepts and values and views and welcomes and sees the strengths in differences that people have, that we
Mhm.
all bring to the table. And
Mhm.
given the current climate of what's going
Mhm.
on in the world at large, like now more than ever, inclusive culture is at the forefront of everyone's minds, and we can break that down into like diversity. And diversity doesn't have to be like racial or ethnic background. It can be
Mhm.
skill sets when you're talking about a team, right? So you have a diverse set of skills to create that cross-functional
Mhm.
team. Diversity can be like when you're dealing with global teams, like just
Mhm.
different backgrounds and things like that. Equity, like do people have a voice? And then inclusion, like are they actually included? So a lot of organizations, I feel, and from my experience, have started to assess and respond to opportunities to advance a lot of inclusion efforts and efforts around inclusion from the White House to your local news networks. Inclusion to me now is at the forefront of various spectrums, and I'm glad that we're having the conversation in terms of agility because it's so important here as well. So just like organizations make a conscious effort to embrace the changing environment from a social standpoint, we should also see an increase in inclusive and diverse teams, which is naturally going to cause us to shift towards a more inclusive culture. So, as an agilist and an agile coach,
Inclusive culture is near to my heart because
Mhm.
it shouldn't matter where people are geographically located or what their ethnic background or gender is, as long as we
Mhm.
have the right cross-functional team in place, the right
Mhm.
practices, the right healthy mindset, healthy behaviors in place that are going to enable us to deliver products. Because at the end of the day, with organizations, these agile transformations and agility efforts are around delivering and accelerating the delivery of products, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And and I'm not speaking so much about co-location and all that stuff right now, but as
Mhm.
leaders in organizations, to me, they seem to think that their organizations are inclusive, but they
Mhm.
really haven't taken that step back to inquire, like, does everyone feel included? Does
Right.
everyone feel like they belong? Do my
Right.
employees feel like their voice matters? Am I
Right.
providing a safe space or a platform to hear and address people's concerns? Or am I just concerned about the work? Do employees or do people on teams understand how great the work is that they're doing and how it
Mhm.
aligns to the big picture, right?
Mhm.
Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, I was just about to jump in because actually you're saying a lot of amazing things, right? But I kind of want to just drill into it a little bit deeper, a little bit more specific. Because the reason why, and I love everything that you said, but one of the things that I have learned, especially being a new manager, because like I personally, I'm just nervous in general because I just want to make sure I am doing right by my people, right?
Hmm.
Which is most important for me, right? But a lot of times, especially when you think about these broader changes, these large organizations, and everybody, especially since last year, that organizations are really focused on making, being committed to systemic change within an organization. However, though, change a lot of times starts at the local level. It starts at that manager. It starts at the colleagues. It starts within the organization. It starts with that line of business, right? So if I come to you and said, like, Korrin, help me out here. I'm a new hire manager. I really want to be really helpful. I want to do right by my people. I want to do right by my organization. I want to make sure that the commitment and the things that we have agreed to and things that we want and things that we say that we're going to do actually do stick. What are some go-tos that you can share with me or for newer managers or maybe even for vets that have been in the game for a while to say like, okay, here is some things that you can do to start thinking through how to be purposeful in creating that inclusive culture.
Okay, so I'll give you 5 nuggets, and it's
Mhm.
AGILE.
Mhm. Of course, there's that. As we got an acronym for
So
everything.
I'm gonna
Absolutely.
give you an acronym for Agile around inclusivity. Number one is accountability. So the A
Okay.
for me is accountability. Here's your five
Okay.
nuggets, right? Your 5 Agile nuggets. Accountability. Make sure everyone has a voice and a shared understanding, and make sure that no one is left behind.
Mm-hmm.
The G stands for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So, self awareness. As a manager, you have to be able to assess yourself and understand kind of what your unconscious or conscious biases are. You have to be aware of your leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
And, do you have a directive approach? Can you curtail or customize that approach? What kind of manager are you? How do you
Mm-hmm.
see yourself growing, in your
Mm-hmm.
role? And what can you do to enable and help your employees to grow as well? So what's
Right.
best for the team? Like not
Okay.
treating each person the same, right? You have to take people and things on a case by case basis. The I is integrity. No matter what
Mm-hmm.
we do, whether we're in Agile or not, always have integrity. To me, that means like being honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
at a minimum. Be honest with
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Self awareness, right? Understand what your blind spots are.
Mm-hmm.
Know what your knowledge gaps are. Check your
Mm-hmm.
own internal moral compass so that you can have trust and build trust with the people you work with and the people who work for you. So always be a person of your word, follow up and follow through. All right,
Mm-hmm.
have that integrity. L, lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, Homeland Security has a slogan, if you see something, say something. That
Mm-hmm.
also works for business. We have to look out for one another. And if
Mm-hmm.
you witness anything unfair, anything unjust, don't just sit on that. Speak up about it and do what you can to make others feel psychologically safe being
Mm-hmm.
on your team and, being a part of the organization. And then the
Right.
E is a double whammy here. We have empowerment and encouragement, right? EE,
Mm-hmm.
right? Lift as you
Yeah.
climb. Like I live by that. Lift as you climb, right? If the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic that we're in right now has taught us anything else, we should remember that we're all one. We are all
Mm-hmm.
on one team.
Mm-hmm.
We're all working towards the same goals. We're all
Mm-hmm.
one people, especially if you're with an organization. Encourage people to bring out their best selves. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't want to bring my authentic self to work.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole other
Right.
thing we could talk about.
Yeah,
I think that's
that's
a
a whole because like
whole, we
because
don't want to go down that
that is my thing.
path.
As you can clearly tell, and this is where everything breaks down. Right, we're doing really good. And the
Yeah.
thing about it is that that is such it's such an important part because to me it kind of takes it back, and I know we need to finish because I know you have your other part, the other E, but I do want to take us back, especially with what you said there, is that you talked about leading by example, you talked about integrity, right? And for me, especially being authentic to yourself and being authentic to what you do, your approaches, and knowing your style, and just knowing yourself and being comfortable with that allows you to grow, and it allows you to really be able to be that example for others, right? And so like the thing about this is something that I thoroughly enjoy. And Korrin, you probably, when you first saw my LinkedIn profile, when I first reached out to you, probably like, who is this guy with these glasses and this hat and this professional headshot? I'm like,
Right.
what? Like, whoa, hold up, champ. Nah, we're good. And the thing about this though is that I do that purposely. So if organizations do reach out to me, or if another, like, let's say a conference or whatever the situation is, going in who I am.
What you see
You
is
can
what
make
you get. CP.
exactly, and
Yeah.
you can base your decision off of that. Now, if you don't want to, move in that direction, hey, no hair off my skin, that's totally fine. It's okay. I will continue to find cheap deals on cheap flights to go to places because, trust me, I'm a baller on a budget. So like I will make it work. However, though, those are probably not the organizations that I want to be a part of.
Right. And
Right.
I'm glad
If
that
I
you landed that within
right.
yourself, because so many
And then
people are still struggling with that.
and I'm not gonna lie, it was hard because I've had colleagues in past, I've had colleagues in present who come to me and say like, hey, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Like, you want to come off professional. And this is the reason why I love this organization that I co-founded with my colleague Andrea Robinson. And that is that um people of color within the agile space come in all different walks of life, right? And if you look at the people who originally wrote the Agile Manifesto, again being the 20th year anniversary, so I'm gonna plug that also. The thing about it is that it was written by people who do not look like me and you,
Right.
right? Who may not have the same backgrounds, the same experience, and things of that nature, who didn't have the same upcomings, and not to discount that experience. And I'm not saying that at all. But the thing about it is that the industry has changed. The people who are stepping into this role has changed. And then the thing about it is that as an organization, as a community, we have to flex and adjust. And I am so happy that the Agile Alliance was able to sponsor this organization and to help us build this initiative to be able to create that space, to be able to create those types of conversations to actively happen, and have been a champion for Agile in Color. So
Isn't that what Agile is about, though? So,
right.
well, what if things don't look the way they looked 20 years ago? We have to progress and we have to
Yeah.
continuously improve, right?
Right.
So I'm excited about that as well, that we have that sponsorship from Agile Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
We have to continuously move forward. And more throughout my career, back in the day, I didn't find as many people of color in the roles that we hold
I
today.
mean, if we're being honest here, there's still not like
There
I'm
are
not.
still
I
some
mean, I like
gaps, let's say that, right?
if no, let's see. You also us. You know me and you.
Right.
We shoot from the hip, and like
I was happy to meet you.
I mean, there's still opportunities for us to get better as a
Exactly.
community. Let me say that, right? And but the thing about it is that when you have organizations such as the Agile Alliance, I'll plug them one more time, to be able to create initiatives like this, and it's on us to help share and reach out and to support as much as we possibly can. That's what makes you some days not be the only person in the room that looks like you.
Right. And that was the part of that L, lift as you
Mm-hmm.
climb, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of being in leadership. Pull people forward. Reach
Mm-hmm.
back and grab someone. Like when you get to where you want to go or you got a little further than where you were before, go ahead and look back and reach back and grab someone and bring them to where
Right.
you are. Because there are so many of us out there that are just simply looking for an opportunity, simply looking for an
You
opportunity. And
know,
you have and just to kind of bring it back to inclusive
yeah, I'm
culture.
sorry. Yeah.
No, 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 it's
You
like,
can
you know
breathe
how
up.
we
Yeah.
do. Wait, CP,
Yeah.
you already know how we do. But it's like, we want to be included. We want to feel welcome. There are certain things about, I'm very passionate. And I love coaching teams. I've been compared to a cheerleader, which at first kind of took me aback a little bit. I was a little
Mhm.
offended because I was like, is that a dig at me being a woman? Like, what's going on here? But I love my passion. I love that sometimes yes, I have to coach. I have to figure out what persona I'm going to use today.
Mhm.
Which,
Mhm.
am I being more directive? Is this a facilitation thing? Am I teaching? Am I mentoring? Regardless of what I do, it's done with so much zeal and so much energy and so much passion. And do you know where that comes from, CP?
Mhm.
It
Where's it
comes
come
from
from?
my culture.
And this is how you bring it all back. This is how you bring it those different lessons
We
learned
have
into that.
flavor that
You
is
have to, yes,
valuable. And it's
that
like
is.
people love us. They love our music. They love the way we dress. Like we are
Mhm.
very trendy people as people of
Mhm.
color. We put things on the map, not only for this country, but globally around the
Mhm.
world. It's like fashion
Mhm.
trends and things like that. And I believe we can add the same benefits to Agile and the
Yes.
agility space. There's not
Yeah.
one way to do it. And if we're
Mm.
sipping our own champagne, if you will, right? That's what we're coaching our teams to do. We
Mhm.
want them to
Mhm.
ask questions and explore different options and look at things from different perspectives. And that's how they're going to discuss things, even if they're having a
Mhm.
refinement call and things like that.
Mhm.
You have to
Mhm.
look at it
Mhm.
from a few different lenses because there's not one smart person on the team. Everybody's collectively smart and creative, right? There's
Mhm.
not only one person that has the answer. Everybody's opinion matters, right?
Mhm.
And people also bring their cultures to the team. They
Mhm.
bring their
Yeah,
diversity,
absolutely.
they bring their upbringing. There's a lot of ingredients in this stew that we create, and we
Mhm.
should have a seat at the table. So I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful
Right.
that we connected. Like, this is so awesome.
I know this is one, and it's actually it's so interesting that you bring it up and you bring up the folks of different cultures and different perspectives. And this is something that I've had to get. And this is where I'm gonna ask you another question, but I want to provide some context because context is important, right? And that is one of the really amazing and really awesome things about being a scrum master, being an agile coach, is just to be able to harness those different backgrounds, those different understands those different cultures and try to and use those as benefits for our team and for our organization. And it's so interesting, especially now where I have to be even more conscious of what's happening around the world. And I will say, and not to make light of the situation, there's some days, especially working completely remote, because sometimes it's difficult for other people, is that it's made me a more well-rounded and inclusive coach, because
Tell me
not just for
more.
people that I work US based. I have colleagues who work in India, I have colleagues that work in the UK, I have colleagues that actually work in Saudi Arabia. And the thing about it is that the amazing part about my job is that I now have to be so aware
Mhm.
and making sure that those people feel best supported, even to the point where I am sending messages, checking on them, and just making sure, like, hey, there's this huge COVID outbreak that's happening in your country. Are you okay?
Right.
Is your family okay? If you need to check out, that's okay, because the most important thing is that you are healthy, that your family is healthy, and that you feel supported. So never feel afraid to take a step back. And that I had to get really good at that. And but that only comes with being conscious about everybody's different background and being that coach who sees you more than a person who just develops code. Does that make sense, what I'm
It
saying there?
totally makes sense and it resonates with me because I work with global teams as well. And one of the first things that I do is I'll have schedule one-on-ones. It's really an assessment, just to kind of do a little digging to see kind of like where all of the pieces are, but it's
Mhm,
also to find out about the people, right?
mhm,
These are people that I'm going to have to work with. So we have teams in India, I have
mhm,
teams in Manila. This is the first time that I'm working with a team in Manila, which is in the Philippines. And
mhm,
oh my gosh, when we talk about culture, some of the most lively people I have ever and
mhm,
beautiful that I have ever
mhm,
worked with in my life. But
mhm,
understanding the culture helps me to, we're virtual now, but organize the right activities,
mhm,
the correct workshops, making sure. even with the teams I deal with in India, everything is like very colorful,
Mm-hmm.
respecting like Diwali and Festival of Lights, and like getting to understand not just how they are as a people, but different things that they celebrate, what's
Mm-hmm.
important to them. I
Mm-hmm.
have them share things with me. And then when we bring the team together, we all do something like a karaoke or something like that. Right? It sounds crazy, but you could do a lot of things now, like virtually, that we couldn't do before.
It's very interesting because it's actually funny that you bring it up, especially when it comes to music, because yeah, I'm a fanatic about all types of music. And the thing about it is that especially like during my retros now, especially when you get the thinking
Mhm.
time, you use that 2 minutes. The first thing I'll do, I'll go to NPR's Tiny Desk concert and I'll pull up something random. Because of course, you can always pull up like Taylor Swift, the Foo Fighters. You could do all of those things. Or you can grab a band that you have never heard of
Right,
from a completely different part of the country, and people are asking those questions like, "Oh my!" Of course, if this is all of us Americans, we're asking like, "Who is this?" And
right.
then you have a colleague who's from that country, like, "Oh my God, how do you know about X?"
Yes.
And
Oh
and
my
they just
gosh.
go into like, "Oh my God, they're this and this band is amazing, and I got to see them live when we were able to go to live
Right,
concerts at one
right.
time."
Like we
And
did
it's
a
just,
Netflix share once, and people were like giving like, whether it was like videos on Hulu, Prime, like everybody was
mhm,
like giving like their, I want to say like movie playlist or whatever like
mhm,
that. And then like everybody's assignment was like to pick one thing. So it was like
mhm,
Bollywood, and then I think it's like Nollywood in Nigeria. I don't know. So like everybody
mhm,
was like
mhm,
throwing in like their movies and stuff like that. And our assignment was like, okay, so we're gonna pick one thing that we're not familiar with and like
mhm.
watch it. And that turned out really well. And we had a good mashup session about that too. So I think we can always create, even virtually. So
Yes.
this has caused us to shift a great deal. I want to say that. But I feel
Mhm,
like there's so much more that we've been able to do, and so much more unity, at least in my experience, from a virtual standpoint, minus the time zone differences and all of that stuff. We can't
mhm,
control any of that. But
mhm,
there's so much we can do, and to be inclusive, and to just have fun, provided people turn their cameras on. Um, that will get people to open up and realize
mhm,
that we are one, like the commonality of COVID that's happening right now.
mhm,
That hit everybody. It didn't matter how much money
mhm,
you had in the bank, where your
mhm.
parents came from, what neighborhood you live in. Everybody was impacted and affected by that. And I
Right.
feel the same way about Agile. Like if there's a
Mhm.
transformation going on, a shift within an organization, everybody's just kind of got to fall in line. So
Mhm,
at best, like one of the first thing is like we have to find a common ground. Let's
mhm,
find something that we all like. And with each team, they're different. One team may be around music. I had one team, they love like old TV shows, and that's what they gave themselves some name from a TV show. And then
mhm.
somebody else was like, "Who was that?" And they started like pulling up Mr. T with the mohawk and the goatee. So it was really cool. And I was like, and the person who suggested it, I was like, I would have never
I
thought he would have been in love with Mr.
would
T,
have never
like
like
with the big gold chain, and that was like cool. And then I worked somewhere where they had like a Run DMC team, and it was just all.
nice.
And then we did like the Walk This Way, and our kind of like Walk This Way was centered around like our continuous improvement items,
Mhm,
right? So there are a lot of different things that we can try, and a lot of different areas where we can make people feel
mhm,
included.
mhm,
One that's super that I'm super sensitive about is about like developers and things like that, or
mhm,
like the people who like the engineers.
mhm,
You'll have like a senior person and a
mhm,
junior person, and
mhm,
I'm always like, okay, well, this person may not have been coding or like been exposed to like or working in software development as long
mhm,
as you have, but they're still
mhm,
here to learn and they're still here to add value to the team. And what I
mhm,
love about the I don't want to say younger because they're not necessarily younger, but like newer or more junior members of the team is that they're
mhm,
so super inquisitive. They always seem to like ask all the right questions, but they're so
mhm,
shy about it because they're so insecure because they
mhm.
realize that they don't have the same level of experience that other people have.
You're right.
But I'm like,
Right.
you've got to speak up because the trivial questions or what you think is
Are
trivial
one of
that
the
you're
things.
asking,
Yeah.
those are right on the money. And that is what
Mhm.
causes the aha moment for someone who actually understands how everything works to kind of
Right.
pull it together. So there's so much value in that. Like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm super sensitive around just kind of like roles and role clarity and things like that on a team.
It's really interesting. This is one of my favorite phrases that I have learned through my time, like through grad school, working in Agile, being a software developer, heck, even working in retail all those years, which is still some of the best years of my life I got to do is right. You always have like that individual or that team member who like asks like you just mentioned, asks those questions that is tribal knowledge. Like people just assume that you know. And you
Right.
know what happens when you assume, it gets you
What they say?
exactly
Right.
let's just say it gets you and me in
And
trouble.
me. Right, right, right.
But the thing about it is really interesting. The phrasing that I love is that when you learn that lesson, because especially for me coming into an organization, and I maybe let's say I don't necessarily know, I'll ask that dumb question. I'll prep it with these like, hey, may I ask a stupid question that maybe
Right.
everybody else in this room knows? But at the end of the day, when you say, they're like, I didn't know that. And I was like, yeah, that's news you can use right there. Go for it.
Right,
Look at
right. I love that.
that.
News you can use. I'm taking
News
that.
you
I'm
can.
taking that.
So kind of like just bringing us back because we've gone over quite a few things, purposely building inclusive cultures, why is it important? Actually going through demonstrations about like how we're able to use that to our benefits. One of the most important things I do want to hit on during this conversation, because I know we're getting close to probably wrap it up here, is things are going to get back to normal. People are going to
Yes.
start going back in the office. People are going to start going through that regular 9 to 5, get on the metro, get on the train, drive to work, sit in traffic, whatever may have you, whatever it is, right? That's eventually is going to happen. There's going to go through that hybrid period based on some companies where it's three in the office, 2 at home, right? How do we keep that same energy being from the remote life that we've had to now going into the hybrid slash be in the office full time? What are some things? What are some action items that you think, especially again for people like me, new hiring managers, right, who we could take those lessons and make sure that that same fire energy does not dissipate when we go back into the office?
Well, relationships are key, right? As agile coaches, like just having basic people skills are important. Building and maintaining relationships are definitely key. If you've already made a connection with people, I don't see that connection disappearing or going away just
Mm-hmm.
because um, we go back to the office. Like once you've established, like we've established a virtual connection, that's not going anywhere. We'll
Mm-hmm.
still make time. It may have to be a little more intentional. So something that I
Mm-hmm.
noticed with virtual is that people are accepting meetings at all weird times of the day just because we're home and kind of sedentary, right now. But once commute, to your point, starts becoming a thing, it may be 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the work schedules are, still make that time. I have
Mm-hmm.
made time when I work with global teams. I take calls. I did this when we were in the office. I will take a call at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning if it's more conducive with a partner. And I look at them as
Mm-hmm.
partners. That's another thing. See everybody as partners. We have
Mm-hmm.
no one who is above and someone else who is beneath, right? We are all one. We're part of one team. As a coach, I pride myself on embedding myself into the team, whatever team it is that I'm coaching, right? Whether it is a lot of hand holding or I'm in high touch mode or I'm bending the training balls up and trying to see,
Mm-hmm.
how they roll
Mm-hmm.
on their own.
Mm-hmm.
These are my partners.
Mm-hmm.
These are my partners. I'm aging myself a little bit when I say this, but there was a Vidal Sassoon commercial back in the day that said, if you don't look good, we don't look good. And they did a swoosh or something like that. I get a little crazy, but that's
I'm
how
not saying I'm not saying.
I
See,
feel.
what I even learned in my life, not just in my professional career, but just in life in general, that I'm not going to make comments. But you know what? Hey, you do you, boo. You do. I'm gonna let you roll with that
But
one. Go for it.
maintain the relationships. See people as true partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand what the value is that you bring to the table and what's
Mm-hmm.
the value add from other people as well, because we all have ingredients for the stew.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
when mixed together, it's a beautiful thing. So when you get back to the office, be conscious about that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we met 3 times a week before. Maybe it's just a bi-weekly now, or we're going to check in once a week. Can I tell you something? I don't think these virtual tools and the bells and whistles slash enhancements to a lot of like the virtual and collaboration tools that we're using now are going anywhere.
No, they're not.
So we're
Not a
still
side.
going to have the video conference. Face to face was one of the agile principles. It's still there. It's one of the agile principles. That's not going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
We're face to
Mm-mm.
face virtually, but if you can sit in a video conference room when you get back to the office with one of your global team members, as opposed to having someone sitting directly across from you, face to face is still important.
Mm-hmm.
right? Conversations and collaboration are still important. We use
That will
Mural
never
at my
change. That will never
company.
change.
Some people are
Yeah.
using Miro, some people are using Mural. If you don't have everyone in the room to get everybody, to add stickies to the whiteboard, still continue to
Boom. There you
use
go.
a lot
Absolutely.
of the collaboration tools that you were using before.
Right.
Nothing really
And
has to change.
yeah, and I think about it is, and I think this is something that, and the reason why I brought this up is that in some cases, teams were using these tools beforehand,
Right.
right? Like it wasn't like, oh my God, Mural all of a sudden blew up and this thing got developed like overnight when everybody started going to the office. Like those tools still existed, right? It's just that now we've become more well versed in actively using them every day.
Don't
Like
lose momentum though.
yeah,
Don't lose the
exactly.
momentum. And
And
I
it's
think
go ahead, sorry.
go ahead. No, I was gonna say like I think something that I do with my teams now, or I have the Scrum Masters do, at least like once a month, like they'll do some kind of virtual event, a virtual team
Hmm.
building event, whether it's a happy hour or a coffee chat or some kind of show and tell. It doesn't have to be anything work specific. When we go
Hmm.
back to the office, of course, it'll be like the after work drinks and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
We'll be back,
Hmm.
but virtually, we've been able to do it with the London office. Like if it's like 3 p.m. here, it'll be like 8 p.m. over there. And
Hmm.
guess what? People join. They're not doing anything anyway. They still join. Or
I
if
mean,
we're
they got
dealing with
things to
someone in
hold on, hold on, hold
India,
on, hold on. People still, we still like, hold on now. We still have a life. Some of us have been vaccinated, okay? So, some of
yeah.
us are like still being responsible, and still going out, So hey,
Listen,
I'm
if we
just
have
gonna
to do it virtually,
there
we'll
you go.
do it virtually, but we want to make sure that we're always respectful. And I'm glad you brought
Yes,
up
absolutely.
vaccines because that could be a whole nother
That's all, yep.
topic.
Yep.
People feel different ways about it, right?
Hmm.
And so one of my teams talk about inclusivity. The
Hmm.
vaccination has now become a topic.
Hmm.
Someone was excited because they were up to get a vaccine. There was a younger person on the team in whatever area or region they were in. It was not yet available to them. So they
Hmm.
were taken aback or offended or however they felt. They didn't feel
Hmm.
good that the other person had mentioned it. And
Hmm.
then someone else on the team was like, they disagreed with it at all. And I was like, whoa,
Hmm.
whoa, whoa, like, where's
Yeah.
this going? Right?
Yep. Yep.
Has this now become a thing like politics and the whole other laundry list of things you can't discuss at work? Or is
Hmm.
there a way that we can all be respectful and inclusive
Hmm.
to how everybody feels about it? Like,
You
go ahead,
I
jump
was,
in.
but because I was about to say, and that is something that actually came up very early on one of my teams. Very before there was like
Mm,
mass vaccination that was happening, where it was only for like healthcare providers, and where there was like legitimate concern, where based off of past history, because of their background and from
right.
where they come from, that it could be something that causes a concern. And Corinne, and keep me honest here, like you're black just like me.
I
Hey,
am.
that exactly. So doctors in some cases were just a tad bit shady when it came to providing healthcare for African Americans, and that is just something that has been ingrained in
It's
our
a
culture.
stigma. It's a stigma.
Exactly. And the thing about this is that those are things, again, if you have done your homework, if you are the type of manager, scrum master, agile coach who is sensitive about those topics, who is aware about those topics, regardless of his vaccinations, or even if it just comes from like people with different religious backgrounds,
Hmm.
you're there to embrace
Right.
all those different perspectives, different backgrounds, things of nature, and that positions you to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations, but knowing that, hey, we may disagree, but we disagree respectfully, and it
Right.
doesn't cause a dysfunction in the team. Because if you
Another
can't
thing we add to our
go
job
go go,
now, right?
go,
No, I'm like, this is a
go.
whole other thing that we have to worry about with teams now. But if we look at like the Scrum values of just
Mhm,
being courageous and open and honest and respectful and all of that,
mhm,
at a minimum, and I know we're almost at time,
mhm,
just be human.
mhm,
Like I want to
mhm,
like rest on that.
mhm,
Like just be
mhm,
human.
mhm,
That's what's going to allow us to be inclusive. You take people on a case by case basis. I don't categorize a whole community or an entire background or even a role on a team as having something over the other.
mhm,
Everybody is an innovator, everybody is creative. We all bring ourselves to the table, whether people are
Mhm.
bringing, and that's a whole nother topic, their authentic selves or not to the
Mhm.
table. We are all bringing our experiences,
Mhm.
right, to the table. And if we're honest with each other, if we're open with each other, and if we are honest with ourselves about our own biases,
Mhm.
right, about
Mhm.
other people.
Mhm.
So like some people will
Mhm.
only
Mhm.
hire a certain group of people because they think that those are the only people that should work in technology, and that's not
Mhm.
true. We have a
Mhm.
lot of blacks who can code and a lot of blacks who do really well with computer
Mhm.
science and software development. Um,
Mhm.
AI is a thing now,
Mhm.
data
Mhm.
scientists. We're in
Mhm.
that space too. You
Mhm.
know, I've heard companies say, well, we don't know where to find black people, and that could be a
Yeah,
whole other ooh, child. So,
that's a
okay, I don't want to touch
whole
that.
because that we'll be here for a whole nother hour
Right,
when
right,
it comes to
right.
yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it with be human. I'm gonna leave it with be human and do unto others. Now you got me in the book. You got me in the book now. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
To you.
How do
Yep.
I want to
Yep.
be treated? How would I want to be approached? How would I want to be responded to? Even if I'm a
Mm-hmm.
new person, right? So I feel like I get a double whammy sometimes because I'm also a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who is this chick coming in here and telling me what to do?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You know,
It's
so I
just
have
like
to deal with the whole
and
gender thing also.
exactly like because and then here's the thing, and you can see it, and especially like if you come from this background, you come from this culture, you come from like you just see it, and like and because that just brought me down a whole nother path too. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but you
say
know,
I'm
they
gonna
raised us right. No.
I know. I'm gonna say my thing. I'm gonna say your thing. We're gonna go real quick. One thing is that I can see the tiptoe, and this is actually something that I actually talked to with one of. Oh yeah, I actually had a conversation with one of the senior leaders of my organization, and I had to give him the perspective of, hey, if I bring up highlights or talk about these DEI issues that exist within
Mm,
our organization, that's gonna make me be labeled the angry black dude, or in your case, the angry black woman.
I've been
And
there.
I am trying my best to not teeter totter on that and be able to figure out what's the best way to highlight this stuff with not be with trying to avoid being, like going. Actually, a better way to phrase this is that how do I become Dr. King and not Malcolm X and figure out the right
When you should be Malcolm X and not Dr.
exactly.
King, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Because I really want to go in hard and be unapologetically black, and I
Right.
try my best every single day to do that. But I also do know is that I have to tailor whatever phrasing that I do, especially with senior leaders,
Hmm.
to be able to say, here's the thing I can and cannot say.
Schedule a part two because
Even
that's a whole other discussion. I don't think I've
yeah, yeah.
mastered that yet, and I'm going to be very vulnerable and transparent with you and whoever's watching this. I've not mastered that yet, and I'm aware of that. It's something that I actually struggle with because I have been labeled the angry black woman, and someone else of a different hue could say the same thing I said, or someone
Mhm,
else of a different gender can have the same message and say it the same way, and they could be labeled as assertive or smart, and I'm angry or frustrated. So
mhm,
that's something that I still and I'm gonna tell you where I landed with it. Know your audience. Sometimes in senior stakeholder conversations, they just want the facts. They don't care about
yep,
your emotions. And
yep,
if you just
absolutely.
keep it straight to the data, that's a great conversation piece because the data will speak for itself. So just give
Mhm,
the information.
mhm.
And at that point, I said, they don't care what you are. They just want to know the
Exactly.
truth,
They want
right?
to
So
know
just be
exactly.
honest,
Right,
have
right,
integrity, and just report what you need to report on and speak to
right,
them frankly, right?
right.
But in other instances, I have been the only Black person in the room. I have struggled with, and this is the part two, like bringing my authentic self to work. Because how much of me do you really want?
You want to
Uh,
see
right.
exactly.
How much of me do you really want? So I respect the fact that you're like, hey, what you see is what you get. I'm going to show up in my baseball cap and in my t-shirt and whatever else. And I'm gonna wear my sneakers. I'm gonna wear my boots if it's Tim's or whatever you wear. I don't want to,
Mhm.
classify that I don't want to tell you wear Tim's. If you don't wear Tim's, I kind of think you do. But
Okay. I mean,
but I'm
do
like,
I have a set of Tim's? Yes.
You got
But
your,
you also
yeah.
have a set of boat shoes. Yes. Go
Okay,
on.
okay. We good, we good. But my thing is like, I like that, but I also struggle with, and I wonder if this is part of a larger conversation. So I'm gonna put a
Mhm,
plug in for a forum for not just you and I to talk about it, but maybe
mhm,
that's part of a larger conversation with other Agile in Color folk as well. Um, but we can actually have a forum or a panel so people can share ideas and struggles and just experiments on how they've handled certain situations, because I'm curious as to how other people in the
mhm,
same situation that we're in. I don't bring my authentic self to
mhm.
work as far as my authentic Black self. I bring my authentic professional self to work.
Mm. It's actually, I'm at, and I promise I did not tell her to say this, but it's actually very funny that she mentioned that because we're at Agile in Colors actually hosting a panel during the Agile 2021
Okay.
conference. So please stay tuned for that. We will have that panel, and then it'll actually be some of the original co-founders and core team members of Agile in Color that will be speaking about that
Awesome.
topic and a plethora of other things. Also, it's funny, another thing that you mentioned about having regular forums, Agile in Color actually does have events coming up in May. We'll have further events coming up in June and July of this year. So
I
please
can't
stay tuned.
wait.
Yeah, I am super excited also, especially for the person who's coordinating all the things. It's been very interesting. A
At the end
couple
of
of
the
things.
day, though, CP, I want to tell you, just be who you are. The fact that you're courageous enough to show up how you are comfortable is a step in the right direction, and it's very inspiring. I'm still in pumps and pearls and all that stuff, but that's just me. But that's, but
I don't
I'm
know how
being my
much
authentic self.
I don't know how much it like, and this is the thing, like I don't know if it necessarily is how much is as encouraging is, but if it is, great. And I hope others will see the value in the things that I do. However, we do have to wrap up. There's actually, well, this is just conversation one of two other conversations that we'll have with Korrin. The next topic will either focus on coaching or I will focus on influencing. So please stay tuned. Again, thank you to the Agile Alliance for hosting and promoting and helping us drive this initiative for Agile in Color and creating a space for Black Agilists and other POC Agilists to thrive. I want to thank you to my co-host, Korrin. She's going to be back here again for part 2 of our conversation. Stay tuned and everybody have a great one. See
All
y'all.
right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.